Well, hi there, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Real Estate Investing. I'm your host, Sharon Vornholt, and I'm so happy you're tuning in today. My guest today is Rich Fettke, and we are going to talk about his new book, The Wise Investor, a modern parable about creating financial freedom and living your best life. And those that have been listening to me for a while know that I love books. I'm an avid reader. Rich is a licensed real estate broker. He's an active investor, and he's the co founder of Real Wealth, a real estate investment group that helps its more than 60,000 members improve their financial intelligence, secure passive income, and obtain financial freedom. He's also the author of Extreme Success and the audio program Momentum. So, welcome to the show, Rich.
Thank you. Good to be here.
That was quite a mouthful there. So,
Well done.
tell me, how did you get your start in real estate?
Oh, it was out of desperation, actually. I was 20 years ago. I was doing really well as a business and personal coach. I had a thriving coaching practice. I was giving keynote speeches all over the country. I had just signed a book deal with Simon and Schuster, and then I was diagnosed with melanoma. And they told me that they thought it had spread to my liver, and they told me I had 6 months to live. So that just rocked our world. My wife, Kathy, and I had a 10-year-old daughter, a 3-year-old daughter. Kathy was a stay-at-home mom. So it was actually Kathy who was the one who rallied and said, okay, I have to find a way to make ends meet if Rich dies. And so she went at it. She sought out mentors, and she found several mentors who were financially successful, and they were financially successful because of real estate investing.
Mm.
So she came home and she's like, I know what we can do. I know what I can do for an income. Thankfully, the doctor's diagnosis was wrong. I did have melanoma, which I had the surgeries to remove it, but it had
Mm.
not spread to my liver like they thought. But after 3 months of testing and not knowing, and a lot of despair and tears and fear, that's what was the impetus to get us into action to become real estate investors. So we did a cash out refi on our house in the San Francisco Bay Area. We went to a little town called Rockwall, north of Dallas, Texas, and we
Mm.
bought 5 investment properties. And that's what got us started as investors. And then we started to have friends and family asking us, how are you investing out of state? How are you doing this? I'm very interested. And so Kathy and I decided to form what we thought would be a small group of friends and family. And she had a small radio show then. And we thought we'd formed a small group. And today that small group is the company we've built. And now it's over 64,000 members that we've helped improve their financial intelligence, create passive
Mm.
income through rental properties.
Wow. I remember this story from Kathy's chapter in The Only Woman in the Room, which is a book that I also reviewed. I
Mm,
remember, now that you say that, I remember that story. So, did
yeah.
you got your start in single family rentals?
Yes. Yep. Single family rentals. We started to do that ourselves as investors. We house hacked the house we were in the Bay Area. It was a 4,200 square foot house that we rented out the lower level. And so that
Mm.
was kind of our foray into real estate investing, being landlords. And that's where we started. And that's what we mostly help busy professionals do, is acquire single family
Mm.
properties, 1 to 4 units. And then in 2010, we really expanded the business and started to syndicate residential development. We started to build developments all over, really, in Reno, Nevada, and Bozeman, Montana, Park City, Utah, some in the Bay Area, actually, more
Wow.
entitlements. So
Mm.
yeah, it grew from there. And yeah, being in this industry and getting to know the amazing people in this industry,
Mm.
it's cool because you can invest in other friends' projects. When you
Mm.
get to know them and trust them, you can invest in their syndications and projects, everything from self-storage to multifamily and all that. So it's been a
Mm.
really cool journey over the last 19 years.
Yeah. It's so interesting that I think once people, if they start with single family rentals, they really, everybody understands houses, your tenants, everybody understands houses, but
Right.
that gives you the basic building blocks for then building a bigger business of different strategies, if that's what you want. I know
All right.
people that stick with single family and build large portfolios. That's their thing. And I think that's the beauty of real estate investing, is you get to do it your own way.
Yeah, and I think the most important thing, just to your point there, is picking your lane. So
Yeah.
it's like, yes, you can, most people start with that single family rental and they
Mhm.
get a couple. And then some people are like, okay, that's enough of that. I want to go bigger. I want to scale.
Mm.
But it's once you decide to go into that next avenue, I think that's the key, is to really become an expert in that
Mhm.
area, stay in your lane. What I've
Yep.
seen and what I've personally experienced, our failures in real estate have been when we've gotten out of our lane, we've gotten
Mhm.
into things we don't understand, and then we've gotten burned. So I
When you
think that's
dabble.
huge. When you dabble, yeah, you chase
Yeah.
the next shiny object or
Yeah.
anything like that. It's
I've
like,
that.
so fundamentals.
It's all about mastery. Master one thing. And then once you've got that down pat, then it's okay to move on. But I would agree with you 100% that that's where you see the failures is people, they don't ever master something and they just dabble a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
Yeah, mastery. I love that word.
Yeah.
And I love that
Yeah.
approach.
Yeah. So tell me, what made you decide to write this book?
The wise investor is an interesting one. Like I said, I had that book deal with Simon and Schuster 20 years ago. It was
Mhm.
a personal development book called Extreme Success. It was all about relating the adventure and sports, the extreme sports, as some people call it, that I do, relating that to business and life, dealing with fear, staying focused. And then I have a coach that I talk to every other week, and just to become a better person, to be a better businessman, all that. And he read my first book. So he was kind of nudging me a little bit, saying, "So when are you going to write your next book? Your first book was so good," and all this. So I'm like, I wrote my book. I'm done, Kenji. And but he just kept kind of prodding me. And then for our business at Real Wealth, we started to apply story branding, which Don Miller, who wrote
Right.
Building a Story Brand. Yeah.
Hmm.
So we started to apply that to our business, where the customer is the hero and the business is just the guide, following Joseph Campbell's hero's journey work. So that got me
Hmm.
so into story writing and the
Hmm.
structure of a story. And so I said that once to my coach. I said, if I was going to write another book, I'd probably write a story, something with the hero's
Hmm.
journey. So that's why The Wise Investor was born. I wanted to take all the lessons that I learned as a business coach over the last 25 years, all the lessons I've learned since I wrote my first book in real estate investing and being a wise investor over the last 19 years. And I wanted to weave it into a story. And the reason I chose a story is because I wanted to, number one, have people complete the book. Most people don't finish a nonfiction book.
Hmm.
So most people don't get it past chapter 2. And so those are stats that I just didn't want. I didn't want to happen with this book. So I wrote a story that would be compelling, inspiring, and even more to really elicit an emotional change. I think stories do that with us. When we read a story and we see ourselves in the protagonist role or in that story, it emotionalizes it. It gets us to take action. It gets us to be like, I'm going to do something with
Hmm.
this. So wise investors, kind of like if you blended Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and The Alchemist, and The Richest Man in
Yeah.
Babylon,
Hmm.
and The Go Giver, kind of like blended those into one book. It's that type of book.
I personally like parable books. I think everybody has their own opinion about books. Some people go straight for
Yeah.
the facts, but for me, it kind of goes back to the branding perspective. I talk a lot about marketing and branding, and people, they might not remember the name of something, but they'll always remember the story behind it. If you can tell a
Right.
compelling story, and they'll link the two up, and that becomes a very powerful branding position for anybody to be in. So tell me a little bit about the characters in the book. Ryan Brooks, the husband, the father. Tell me about this, how this all began.
Yeah, so it's a fictional story, obviously, but it's based on real life events and real life
Mhm.
people. So Ryan Brooks is kind of a combination of a lot of the stories and a lot of the people that have been in our network since 2003, hearing their stories about where they were, what they did, the struggles they were having, the challenges they were having, what they did for taking action, and where they are today, how they've created financial freedom. So many people kind of wanted to basically weave those stories into this main character, Ryan Brooks. So he's a hardworking family man. He's got a wife and a couple kids. He's making a good 6 figures, maxing out his 401k, but he doesn't have time for his wife or his kids or
Mhm.
even to live. So he meets this new friend and new mentor who's older than he is, wiser and more experienced as an investor and in life. And he guides him and shows him how to create financial security for himself, for his family. And it goes beyond that. He gets wealthy in more ways than he thought possible. He learns about uh, developing his self discipline, about getting more out of life, about being more present, being a better husband, being a better dad. So that's why I say I kind of wanted to
Mhm.
weave all these best principles into a story that would connect. And so it shows his life, this Ryan Brooks' life, and his wife as well, and the mentor and John Weiss and his wife as well. So there's this two couples who are really connecting on a regular basis. And then 5 years later, you get to see the transformation of what happens in his life from these lessons learned.
And you talk about the term real wealth. That's something that I'm passionate about is building a lifestyle. And
Mm,
one person's business might not be the business plan for the next person. Maybe somebody is super focused on growing a huge business. Maybe
mhm.
somebody that has small children for now, they're about let's make money, but I want to be here when my kids are growing up. So
Yeah.
I think when it comes to real estate investing, that's another thing I love about it is you can fit it into any stage of life that you're in. You can
Yeah.
take those critical stages like small children, older children, empty nests, retirement, and then you can weave that into making a business that suits you. If you think about it differently, I think part of it is you have to think about it. What do I want? So let's talk about this
Yeah.
real wealth thing. What
Yeah.
does that mean to you?
I mean, that's why we called our company Real Wealth, is we saw it
Mhm.
as more than just money, not just about
Right.
being rich.
Mhm.
It's about having the money and also the freedom to live life on your own terms. So real wealth, it's really about being able to do what you want, when you want, with the people you want to be with, and really, most importantly, to enjoy each moment. So exactly
Mhm.
what you're talking about, that lifestyle, and exactly what you're talking about, you have to be intentional about it. It's
Right.
not just going to happen. Yeah. So it's like, what's the vision? What does it really look like? What do you want your life to be like? And then you have to go to work and take action on it and learn and grow. So yeah, it's intentional, and I think it's just
Mhm.
a better way to live.
Obviously you're a goals person and I bet you write everything down. So and I know that the statistics around written goals that there people achieve those so much at a much higher rate than people that kind of have their goals up in their head. So what
Absolutely.
do you tell your people that you coach about goals and plans and staying on track and all of those sorts of things as it pertains to getting where you want to be in real estate or really anything in life?
Yeah, yeah, and especially real estate is so
Mhm.
important. Yeah, I mean that's just and so many studies show that. They've tested so many people from Harvard to Stanford, and and everything beyond that about the power of writing down goals, the power of clarity, having a goal. What I think the biggest thing there is having goals makes us happier. And
Right.
where humans are teleological beings, coming from the Greek word that teleos, meaning target. We need a target.
Mhm.
We want a target. So when we move toward what's important to us, toward our purpose, toward getting better, we're happier. It's so simple. So yeah, it's really important. But what I tell my clients and what I recommend, like even in the book, is find what works for you.
Mhm.
And find what works for you on a consistent basis. So for some people, it's just having three big goals, and that's it. These are my three big goals, and you know them. You don't, you write them down somewhere, but you don't have to look at them all the time, but you want to have them
Mhm.
in your head at all times. So you're looking for opportunities and people and circumstances that are going to help you move toward your goals. For some people, they're way more analytical. They like to crank out the goal plan. They like to have, 10 goals and break them down. They like to do the
Mhm.
SMART analysis, and then they like to, go through and do this other one called whooping, which is your wish, your outcome, your obstacle, and your plan. So that's been scientifically proven that if you look at your obstacles after you set your goal, you look at your obstacles immediately and say, what obstacles might I encounter with this goal? You're such a higher percentage of you accomplishing that goal. They had some people set goals, and this was at Stanford University. Some people set goals and they didn't look at the obstacles, and another group set goals and they did look at the obstacles. And the ones that did look at the obstacles, I think it was 78% more goal achievement for the people who looked at their obstacles ahead of time. So just, yeah, so it's different for different people, but I absolutely think it's vital to really give thought, get clarity, really look at what you want, and on a big picture too. Like
That
what do you
that
want
I
big picture?
love. Yeah, I've not really thought about doing it that way. So repeat that one more time. WOPO is
Oh,
the
whoop. Yeah, you can whoop it. I can't
WOOP.
remember. Yeah, I can't
Okay.
remember her name. This is a university professor who came up with this
Wow.
whole thing with her research.
I
And it's,
l-
yeah, wish, outcome, obstacle, plan. So it's like, what's the wish? If this turned out perfectly, what does it look like? what's the outcome? So how do I measure this outcome? It's almost like that SMART analysis, specific, measurable,
Hmm.
attainable, relevant, and time frame. And so you look at that, you look at what's the outcome look like with clarity. And then you look at the obstacles. What might get in my way? And what am I going to do if I encounter this obstacle? How, or who can I get? Who can I have to help me through that? And then what's the plan? Then you lay out your plan after you look at all that.
I love
Simple,
that.
really cool framework.
Yeah, I love the framework. And another book that I'm a big fan of for people that have trouble staying on track, like a lot of entrepreneurs, like a lot of us, we get distracted easily, but is the 12-week year. If you got your big three or four goals, and I'm a fan of getting those big goals, it works for me to break them down and say, this is what I'm going to work on, or this is what I'm going to delegate, whatever that looks like in your business. But I just think that you're not going to get from point A to point B if you don't have a plan, some kind of a plan. And like you said, I agree with you. Work it however it works for you.
Yeah. Yeah. You might get lucky and accomplish it. And, I've met people who say, I don't have goals. And, I was talking to an author and he said, I don't have any goals. I don't set goals.
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, your goal to finish a book was a goal. It just was in your head, but it was a
Mhm.
goal. You said,
It
I'm going
was
to
a
write
goal.
this book. This is what it's going to be like. So that was the goal. It's just a different approach.
Yeah, true, true. So let's talk about mindset a little bit. I know that you deal with this a lot in your coaching. Mindset, in my opinion, holds more people back in real estate than almost anything. Even and certainly when it comes to money, we all grow up with these beliefs that are instilled in us, and we carry them
Yeah.
forward, whether it's in our business or in our life, and that affects the way you think. And I think, like to your point that I read somewhere, there's a difference in the way poor people think and rich people think. So let's dive into this a little bit.
Yeah, and the mentor goes over this in the book, and he actually says he knows some people who are so poor that all they have is money. So it's
Mhm.
like those are the rich people, but they're rich in money, but they're poor in life. And so the mentor goes over the difference between, he calls them wealthy people. So truly wealthy people, like you and I were talking about, real wealth, truly wealthy people. They have what they do is they value time. They value time more than anything because I know they, once they spend it, they can't get it back.
Mhm.
So I think that's a huge thing. A lot of observations. So wealthy people tend to focus more on education than entertainment.
Mhm.
So many, poor people, and I'm not just saying financially, but just poor in life, is that they focus on entertainment and kind of checking out and put most of their attention there, which is fine. I mean, it's great to, entertainment's fine, in small doses, but
Mhm.
it's the education that's the key. So that's another thing. And then one of the big ones the mentor talks about is envy. So a lot of poor people operate through
Mhm.
envy. They look
Yeah.
at rich people or wealthy people and they're like, how did they make their money? They probably, robbed someone, or did something that's,
Mhm.
kind of like not ethical or whatever.
Mhm.
Or they make all these stories. They're like, oh, look at that big house. They don't need that big house and stuff. But the truth is, wealthy people, they look at it as inspiration. So instead of envy, they turn that into inspiration. When they see something or someone who's accomplished something great, who's making a difference, who's built a big company or has a big portfolio, they look at that and they say, wow, that's inspiring. I want to do that
Mhm.
same thing. They
Mhm.
did it. I'm going to do it too. So that's just another way. So it's a whole bunch of things like that. It's that importance of getting the most out of life, living a really fulfilling, full life. And wealthy people also give back. That's what I've seen.
Mhm.
Living in Malibu, there's a lot of wealthy people here, and I met a lot of them. A lot of them are super cool, really giving stuff. Some of them are, kind of grumpy and not that cool. But most wealthy people, the truly wealthy people, are fulfilled. They're happy. They spend time with their family. They take vacations. They give back. They donate a ton. Their businesses are making a difference in the world. They're
Mhm.
employing people. So that's like you said, it's that mindset thing. When you get into that wealthy mindset, even if you don't have a lot of money, that's the mindset that starts to attract the money, and not just in a woo-woo sense. It's because you start operating differently.
So instead of really resenting the people that have more, you almost need to make them into a vision board. You're,
That's a good way to look
almost
at it.
really, to look at it and say, I want to go here, not so much for the big house or the money, but for the lifestyle that it can give me. I can live life on my terms. Then that's the thing I think most people want. They want to live life on their terms. And
Mm,
sadly, not a lot of people get there. Not really.
yeah. Or they don't believe they can. They have that inner gremlin. I had this inner voice in my head growing up that someday I'm going to invest in real estate. Someday when I have a lot of money. And so
Hmm.
that was a limiting belief. And I was like, I thought that I had to have hundreds of thousands of dollars before I could get started in real estate. So I kept waiting and kept waiting. And
Hmm.
so instead of educating myself and learning that you don't need that much money to get started, I could have started a lot younger, which would have been really nice today.
Yeah, don't we all wish we'd done that, right?
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, throw out a few tips for people. If they find themselves stuck in this limiting belief, you just said it doesn't take a lot of money to get started in real estate. How can they begin to change their mindset? I'm sure you've done this a million times, but people they think that they're this special flower that everybody else
Mhm.
can do it, but them. How
Oh,
can
right.
they?
Yeah.
That they can do it. They've got money, or they're smarter, or whatever. But each individual has the power to step up. Maybe they won't take a step and get to Rich's level today, but you can get there by taking many steps along the way. So how do people begin to believe in themselves? Do you think it's about taking those first steps, or what is it that gets them off of the stuck place in the ground?
I think it's a combination of things. It's that, I think everyone is a special flower, but some are just a little more wilted, right? So, everyone has their way about going at it and
Yeah.
figuring it out. And that's, as a coach, that's the way I always coach my
Mhm.
clients. It was always seeing them as creative and resourceful, and they have a lot of the answers, and they're resourceful so they can find the answers. So I wasn't one to say, like, here's what you need to do it my way.
Mhm.
That's more of a mentor, which is fine. A mentor is like,
Mhm.
been there, done that. If you do what I
Mhm.
did, you can be where I am. So as a coach, I've always had people take a look at, number one, the limiting beliefs, like you talked about. What are those limiting beliefs? I used to do that in my
Mhm.
first coaching session. I don't really coach much anymore because trying to run this business and we're
Mhm.
actually running this business.
Mhm.
But when I worked with clients, our first session would be a 2-hour session to really go deep and look at, I would say, what is that voice in your head that tells you lies, that tries to hold you back, that tries to protect you? I call it the gremlin.
Mhm.
And they would identify it. And, you know, everyone, I've coached CEOs to entrepreneurs to salespeople, and every single person has this limiting belief in their head. All of us. I'm sure you do. I know I do. And
Mhm.
so it's identifying it first, because it's going to get in the way. It's in our subconscious mind, and it was born with us, and it's not this nasty beast that, the gremlin sounds really bad, but it actually can befriend it. You can actually check in with it and say, okay, gremlin, what's this
Mhm.
inner voice? What are you saying to me? Thanks. I know you're trying to protect me. I know you come from my
Mhm.
past and all my past beliefs. So I know you're trying to protect me. So thank you. And what do you need from me to move forward here? And so often that subconscious mind, it's so powerful. That subconscious mind will actually give you some answers. It's almost like looking at the obstacles. You set your goal and you say, okay, what obstacles? Same thing. This is what I want. Okay, gremlin, what do you need? What are you afraid of? What do
Mhm.
you want here? And so it starts with that, identifying the limiting belief. And then the next thing is about education and clarity. So it's like getting clear on what you want, really visualizing it, or writing it down, getting clear on what that looks like. What's real wealth to you? What does your ideal life look like? What does the best version of you look like? So then you get that clarity, and then you go into the next phase of just as simple as, okay, what do I need to learn? What education do I need? And once you do that, but some people get so stuck in education, they spend thousands and
Mhm.
thousands of dollars on educating themselves, like before they do a deal. I've met people who spent over $50,000 on masterminds and
Mhm.
coaching and books and courses, and they don't own a single property. So
Mhm.
that drives me crazy, obviously. So you got to put a time frame on it, and I think that's the key. Is saying, okay, I will take action. I will be in my first deal by this date, and that way you got an end date. It won't just be going on and on. So
Mhm.
that an action creates results, action creates momentum. So that's it. A kind of simple process, nothing new, but it's
That
just the way it
but
works.
that's great advice, son. I think everybody should take this podcast. We should cut out the part where you talk to the gremlin. I love that. I think that should be like a regular thing. It's funny that you talk about subconscious because some back, I don't even know when, someone said, never go to bed at night without asking something of your subconscious. And I have a
Mm.
little post-it note that reminds me every night. Maybe it's what did I do with my keys, but so it might be that, but it's usually something back to the gremlin, help me sort this out during the night. You just give it that suggestion. And it's
Yeah,
amazing how that works. But I love the
incredible.
gremlin thing, the talk to the gremlin. That's a great way to do it. Just get up every morning and confront the gremlin.
Mm.
What is the thing here? We could almost be like a gremlin meditation here. We'll
You're
cut that,
right. Yeah,
we'll cut that out and you can play it. Rich will be in your head every day.
hopefully not as your gremlin, but
Well, no, as your a gremlin slayer, that will say
yeah,
that.
yeah. I'll be the angel's advocate.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your community. I'm curious to know about your community of more than 60,000. You said 64,000 people?
Yeah, we just passed 64,000 members at
Wow.
Real Wealth. And so, yeah, we started in helping people get into single family properties around the country. I'm a real estate broker. So I've established relationships with other brokers around the country and property teams that have inventory available, mostly 1 to 4 units in emerging markets where people are moving and businesses are moving,
Mhm.
rents are increasing and all that. So that's what we do. We do all that groundwork. We help locate the properties. They have tenants in place, they have property management in place. So really, we mostly work with busy professionals who don't have the time to go and
Mhm.
search the MLS or rehab a property or any of that. They just want to acquire a hard asset that's going to, I was going to say that's going to cash flow. Today it's harder to cash flow, but
Yeah.
I think you should always buy a rental property that makes sense from day one. So never go negative.
Right.
I'm sure you went through 2008. I know I went through 2008, learned some
Hmm.
big lessons about that. But
Yep.
but these busy professionals, they want to acquire an asset that where they get all those, 5 big benefits of owning rental properties. And
Hmm.
some people graduate from there. And then in 2010, we started to syndicate. And so we do the residential development and syndication. So a lot of our members who've invested in single families will then invest in the syndication. So they'll just buy a unit in the syndication as a passive investor, as a limited partner. And so they team up with us and we all invest together. And it really all depends on what the project is, but usually it's residential development. A lot of the time it's
Hmm.
ground up. That's been our main
Hmm.
focus.
Yeah, I know several people doing ground up builds for rentals now. That's it's a very interesting model. Well, Rich, this has
Mhm.
been a great show. You're speaking my language here. So, what's the best way for folks to get in touch with you?
Our website's probably the easiest. That's just realwealth.com. You can find everything there. I think there's only one Rich Fettke in the world. So on social media, just Rich Fettke, which is Fettke. And then for the book, it's on all major booksellers. Amazon.com has it. It's The Wise Investor. The ebook and Kindle version is out now. It's been out for a few months. Robert Kiyosaki wrote the forward for it, which I'm super stoked on.
Mm.
Yeah, so it's published through Rich Dad Advisors Press, and it's going to be out as a hardcover and also an audio book in the end of August.
So it'll be on Audible and all the listening platforms.
Yeah, yeah. I narrated
Cool.
the audio book, which is a fun challenge. I had to do some learning for that because there's 10 different characters. There's men, there's women, there's kids. So I had to take some
Oh,
voice acting lessons before I did that one.
well, that's very cool. I tell people if you're living inside your comfort zone, if everything feels nice and smooth, you're in the wrong place. We should all be doing something that stretches us all the time. Well, thanks
Amen.
again, Rich, for coming on the show. And I'll put all those links in the show notes. And thanks to all the listeners for coming out, as always. If you love this show, and I know you did, please share it and leave us a rating and a review on iTunes. I would appreciate it, and Rich would appreciate it so we can get the word out about his new book. So I will see you all same time, same place next week. Bye for now.